talk about the company VELOTAX. We're going to talk about the mission, the vision, the objectives, the organigram structure, the DDP plan, and the risk metrics. So we hope so that you like it. Basically, the company was founded on April 13 in 1953 in the city of Ibagué by Pedro Contreras Jimenez, founded the company VELOTAX as a passenger transport company. It's in an intermunicipal level in the department of Tolima. VELOTAX extended its borders to the city of the department of Caldas, Valle del Cauca, Bogotá, Meta, and the regions of Santander. Nowadays is one of the passenger transport companies most recognized in the sector. So basically, the mission and the vision is that VELOTAX mission is to guarantee the optimal passenger land transport service, freight logistics and solutions, and messaging in the national level, supported by competent and committed human team with technology and an environmental responsibility, excelling the excellence and the quality in the service. Basically, the visions of VELOTAX is to be for the year 2030, a company that satisfies the preferential needs of its associates with a projection in the individuals offering the best quality in the service of passenger transport. Basically, the corporate values of the company are thanks and respect to God, quality, commitment, efficiency, respect, punctuality, social responsibility, security, and solidarity. The organization chart consists in a general assembly, the supervisory board, the board of directors, and the fiscal auditor. We are not going to explain it more specifically because they have many areas in those sub areas. So they share information, they share the DRPs, they share the risks, they share the plans for the vision and the mission of this company. So we're going to stay here in that organization chart that are the most general positions of it. We base this information security policy in a risk matrix. We basically have 4 points: the scope, the level of compliance, the terms and definitions, and normative reference. This is important because it contains the confidentiality, the integrity, and availability of the information that is the major active of the company. So we assure that it's really important for the company, and we did it in the class. So we have these 4 main components. The scope is in general and specific. The level of compliance is how the people of the company they have achievements in this information security policy. The terms and definitions, it for the people that do not understand this information security policy, it has the definitions and keywords of this security policy. And the normative reference has many reference of the government or other organizations, other important organizations of the passenger transport companies. And basically the information security policy, in this case the normative reference are alcohol, tobacco, and drug policy, authorization for the management of personal data, the road safety policy of VELOTAX Transport's cooperative, and security work health policy, corporate, environmental, and quality social responsibility. And the last one is super transportation, that is the organization of the government that supervised all the security staff of passenger transport companies.
Now we're going to talk about the risk matrix for VELOTAX operation. We found approximately 15 types of risk. We're going to highlight 4 of the more recurrent risks during the operation. The first type of risk, it has to do with environmental and labor incident. The description is a landslide that generates a blockage in the road. The probability for this risk is high and the impact is harmful. The decision for this risk is to accept, since there's nothing we can do about a landslide, and we can only hope and wait until authorities clears the road. The second type of risk has to do also with environmental and labor incident, and it's an accident or a crash against another vehicle or object. The impact of this risk could be either harmful or extreme, depending on the damage caused by the accident. The decision could be either mitigate or transfer. If the impact is harmful, we could mitigate this risk by training the drivers on defensive driving strategies to avoid any kind of incident. And if the impact is extreme, we have to transfer this risk because we will need the help of medical authorities and the security company to manage the damage in the bus. The next type of risk has to do with technical and is engine failure during the operation. The probability for this risk is low, but the impact is harmful since it will stop the travel. The decision for this risk is to mitigate, and it's basically to make sure that every bus, before it starts a travel, has a full engine revision to make sure there isn't any signs of damage or possible mishaps. Finally, the type of risk is human resources, and description is due to tiredness or fatigue or lack of sleep. The driver is unable to operate. The probability for this is low, but the impact is extreme since a driver that is unable to operate correctly could generate some other type of risks. The decision is to mitigate, and it basically consists to determine the maximum hours that a driver can operate continuously and make sure there is an alternate driver in case the official driver is feeling unable to continue the operation. Now we're going to talk about COVID. So we're talking about the processes. We have 11 processes in the planning and organization scheme, and basically they have to do with define a system strategic plan, define information architecture, determine technological direction, define TI organization, manage TI investments, communicate managerial objectives and aspirations, manage human resources, ensure external requirements compliance, evaluate risk, manage projects, and manage quality. In the information criteria, based on the security politics, we can see that confidentiality, integrity, and availability are the priorities for VELOTAX. That's why all the checkboxes in these three criteria are primary. On the other hand, compliance, reliability are also very important depending on the process. That's why it has some primary checks and some secondary checks. Finally, effectiveness and efficiency is not very mentioned during the security policy nor found in the company documents. That's why you only have some types of primary criteria and the rest is in blank. With the TI resources, based also on the security policy, VELOTAX focus heavily on the protection of the data. That's why the data is checked on almost all the process, same as resources, installations, but with technology and application systems, we didn't find any information neither on the page of the company or in the security policy. That's why those are in blank for most of the process.
So for the disaster recovery plan, the most important process for VELOTAX is the process of buying tickets online. Why? Because VELOTAX is a company of transportation, so their main goal is to sell tickets. The risk related to IT would be a server failure, a storage runout, or a power failure, or internet service failure. The RPO and RTO would provide an architecture of a RAID 51. What does that mean? We can assume the company has a data center apart from the main server in the company. So in one server, which would apply to both servers, we would have a configuration of 3 SSDs at a minimum, and we would configure them with a RAID 5, which would give them to store one part of the information in each disk, and at the last one parity disk bit, so we can recover the information faster. And between both servers, we would configure them as a RAID 1, which would be working like a mirror server. Between both of them, we would configure them as a failover cluster, which would give us a synchronization between both of them, and a heartbeat, which communicates both servers, which would have a master and slave configuration. The master being the main server, and the slave being the alternative data center. Between these servers, we would have a heartbeat signal, which would communicate both servers to know if they're up every 5 minutes. As I said before, we can assume the company has an alternative data center. With this in mind, with the architecture proposed, and the knowledge of what the main processes of the company are related to IT, we can say that the recovery point objective would be recover all the data, because the slave server would take all the main functionalities of the main server and recover or have the same data the main server had before it failed. The recovery time objective would be at a maximum of 5 minutes. We assumed an hour would be acceptable, but with the architecture of a failover cluster, we can assure that the company would have an uptime of the servers at a 99% of the time, and at a maximum of 5 minutes, we would recover the transaction movement. To conclude, VELOTAX as a company was missing planification related to their information security. Apart from that, the company doesn't state their disaster recovery plan, nor their corporate government policies, nor their risks as a company. Because of this, we could propose a disaster recovery plan, COVID-5, risk matrix, and information security policies that could ultimately benefit the company considering its mission, vision, values, and structure. Thank you.